Hello and welcome. I would say good morning, but maybe good afternoon, good evening, and good night as well. Whether you are watching live or whether you're watching this recorded, I want to say a big hello and welcome to you all. We really appreciate you taking your time. We know you've got busy jobs in the events industry, so really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us and hopefully have a really interactive and engaging session with you on this webinar topic today. We did discuss earlier, we want this to be a conversation amongst friends. We want it to be engaging. We want it to be interactive. So please do use the Q&A function to be part of this event with us as well. And we've got over 200 of you joining us worldwide. So we're going to start off by saying, please use that chat function. Let us know where in the world you are, because we would love to say hello and to see those flags popping up in the inbox as well. So first of all, we're going to go to introductions. So my name is Gemma. I have been with Mice Concierge for 1 month, 6 weeks, and I'm the business development director there. But prior to that, I have got 26 years experience within the events industry, mainly from a venue perspective. So I did 20 years at an academic venue where I looked at operations, sales, event management, and a bit of PCO services as well. And then for the last 6 years, I was at ICC Wales as association sales manager. So, really getting into the skin of associations and what they wanted from a venue, but also from an event perspective as well. So I'm going to introduce you now to the lovely panel. So I'll hand you over to Anna. Anna, if you'd like to give us some background into your experience to date.
So I have been in the industry and with the company for 13 years now, so a very long time. I had no prior experience before starting and started off in a very junior admin role. Over the years, I've worked my way up through the company, learning the industry, learning the clients, learning the technology. And since then, I've probably delivered hundreds, maybe thousands of online and virtual events.
Great. Pavi, over to you.
Hi, I'm Pavi, and I've never managed any event. However, for the past 15 years, I work closely with thousands of event planners, and I've seen their daily challenges. I work with various leading event technology companies, throughout the world, and I've seen hundreds and thousands of event planners, fighting with their daily tasks, etc. I'm a regional sales director here at Eventsair, and despite my title, my hidden talent is basically resetting a router while holding a cup of coffee in one hand and having an event planner on the phone in another. Some call it multitasking. I call it survival, basically.
And I'm asking, where's your cape? Your superhero task there. And Anna, tell us about your current role. I know there's been some changes recently.
So I'm currently the client services director. So I'm normally used to being on the other side of the camera rather than this one, normally this side. So my primary focus is working with clients and our team to find solutions for them for their events. So I'm normally that main point of contact for them. I'm also that contact throughout the event and after the event, working closely with the events manager, being that liaison. But then I also work really hard in kind of managing and coaching and training the team internally.
Sounds good. And I just want to point out as well, so even though I'm new to Mice Concierge and Eventsair as well, I have actually got experience. So I've been a delegate user of Eventsair, and as a venue, I've worked on numerous events with Mice Concierge as well. So I know just how much experience these guys have as well. So, please, as I said, ask as many questions as you can, and we'll go through the session. So the first question, Mice Concierge, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
So we at Mice Concierge, we're a full service agency. We pride ourselves on not only combining the technology, but with also our friendly team of experts, we like to think. So we work with clients across the full life cycle of the event, whether it be from pre-event, on-site, post-event. Now, we obviously work very closely with Eventsair on the technology side of things, but we do have a full suite of services that we offer. It can range from pre-event registration, app building, on-site badging, exhibitor speaker management, and we even do venue sourcing and accommodation programs. So really one-stop shop then, yeah, a bit of everything. Absolutely. And I said, one thing that we work closely with our clients is, they can use us for the full range of services. They can use them anything from start to end, but also they can cherry pick the services that we offer. So they can select the things that are most beneficial for them. And I think, with our client base that we work with, there's a large range of clients, but it's primarily association business as well.
That's good. And Pavi, over to you. How about Eventsair?
Well, Eventsair is an event technology company, in case you didn't know. But we've been around for a little over 3 decades now. So we've been around a long, long time. And just to put things into perspective, that is when internet was born. So we've seen quite a lot of stuff. We've seen transitions from, invitations when they used to be faxed We've seen manual registrations, printed invites, etc., to now using AI into event technology. So we've been around a long time. We have helped manage events like Olympics, Commonwealth Games, G8, G20, and behind all these big names, there's hundreds and thousands of small and medium-sized events which we help run for our customers. Eventshare is a very comprehensive event technology platform, and it has grown organically. So be it things like abstract management or exhibition management or simple registrations or having a mobile application for your event, everything is in one single system. So the experience which our clients get is basically one single system. You don't have to log into other systems. So yeah, that's what Eventshare do.
Sounds good. So on that note, now that we know that you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge, and we're going to do a deep dive now into the session topic. So focusing on 1% enhancements and improvements to the events industry. And as I said, I wanted to be thought-provoking. We've talked amongst ourselves. We could talk about this subject all day. We have 45 minutes, so we really want it to be engaging, as I said, fire in those questions that we can hopefully provide some answers to as we go through. And the most important thing for us, we'll be talking a lot about operational efficiencies and ROI. And on that note, with the webinar today, our ROI, we want you to have some key takeaways. And please, by all means, share those at the end of the session with us as well. So I'm going to hand over to Pavi first. So what do we mean by 1% improvements in the events?
Well, this concept of marginal gains is widely used by British Cycling, where they divide a big task into smaller processes and try and make marginal gains onto each one of those processes. So the cumulative effect of those marginal gains on those small processes is huge on the bigger task, and it's quite relevant to the events industry as well. That if you break down the entire event into smaller bits and pieces like registration, delegate experience, or post-event experience, or engagement, etc., and make marginal improvements, like we're saying today, 1% improvement into each and every one of those things, the cumulative effect is going to be huge on the entire event.
Anna, over to you.
Yes, so I wanted to add as well that these 1% improvements don't necessarily need to be kind of external facing. Yes, great for improved delegates, but actually they can be improvements that you can make internally as an organization. If you can make those small improvements to, change your efficiency, the process that you're doing, the technology you're using, it gives you as an organization way more breathing space to then be able to focus on that delegate facing options.
And I suppose, we've talked about Mice Concierge and Eventshare, it's those 1% improvements, it is easy to see those, in terms of the ROI. We talked about analytics reports earlier, so, using those functionalities in that respect as well. And why is it such an important concept, Pavi, to have these 1% improvements?
It is important. If you look at different event processes, if you break down into smaller processes, like let's say delegate experience, the delegate experience starts way before the actual event. If you make slight improvement in that experience, like for example the email which they receive, if you make it one single email which has all the information and bits and pieces about the event, instead of sending them 5 different emails, one for downloading mobile application, another one for accessing exhibitor portal, another one for meetings matching, etc. If you improve that communication bit just a little bit, it will make the delegate experience much better. Talking about onsite, if you have that a couple of extra engaging questions during gamification, it engages attendees. Talking about post event, if you make slight improvements on how you use that event data, it could be much more impactful. And we'll talk about this in detail during right now.
I was going to also add, it also depends on where you are in the life cycle of that event and the planning. If you're as an organization, you are not using the facilities such as an event app and you have kept everything on paper and paper programs, which we know a lot of organizations still do. It's about making that change to digital, whereas you might already be using the digital stuff, and how can you use that more? Can you might be using an app, but can you use additional features? It's those kind of small changes you gradually go through that can help.
I suppose, as we mentioned, it could be going from 7 spreadsheets to just the one spreadsheet. It could be going from one spreadsheet to online registration. It could be going from a website to having a full app as well. So, there's always those little steps. And as you said, and brick by brick is the easiest concept to do that. In terms of overwhelm, I think that's something that we talked about as well. It's that holistic approach is quite daunting and overwhelming. So,
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes more than 1% can feel very overwhelming. As event organizers, it's a very stressful job. There's lots to do. And actually, sometimes if you think ahead of the event, you think kind of everything that you've got to do and everything you want to achieve, it can be very overwhelming. Whereas if you break it down into those small 1%, it could be 1% overall for the event. It could be 1% across every different aspect of it. It makes it much easier to break down and much more manageable for yourself as a team and also for your attendees.
And I guess that goes back then to the particular associations when you've got a president, a chair, a whole committee. If you're making these small improvements, it's great in terms of feeding back to the board meetings when you've got these little improvements. So let's talk about the delegate journey, as you mentioned, Pavi. So let's start right at the beginning, before the event. What 1% improvements can be done prior to the event actually starting?
So I want to talk about the delegate experience before the event. So the actual event experience for a delegate starts way before the actual event. Like, imagine your delegates, their first impression of your event is your event website, is the first invite which they receive, or the first banner they see about your event, or the first online ad they see about your event. So getting that absolutely right is absolutely crucial. Because that's how they're going to think about your event. Imagine receiving a shabby invite. If you receive an email, it doesn't look great, you're probably like, oh, this is spam, and just report it as spam. But if you're investing a lot of money into your event, you might as well start with a great first attendee experience. Just send them, spend some time on sending that cool invite, creating a nice website, and that attendee experience. The moment delegates click on that register button and register, the event journey starts. So sending them one single email instead of sending them a plethora of emails, etc. It's very nice when attendees get everything on one single place. So be it downloading the mobile application, and there's little things like, let's say you have an event mobile application for your event, and once attendees register, you send them a confirmation email and say, okay, click here to download the mobile app. Everything so far, looks good. You've sent one single email. However, when attendees download that app and the app says, oh, by the way, we've got 2-factor authentication. So now you need to go to your email, open that OTP email which you've received, come back to the mobile application, enter that OTP, submit it, and that's when you get logged in. Well, it's not that smooth, is it? Because I know you want to make sure that the app is absolutely secured, but you've just lost that attendee experience there, because now attendees need to go to the mobile application, come back to their email, go back to the mobile application. So it's, a lot of back and forth. Instead of that, simply just send one email like, here's your event code, here's your username, here's your unique PIN. It is absolutely secured, and attendees don't have to come back to their email for OTP. So that's, in my opinion, that's 1% improvement. And there's plenty of other things which you can do.
I was going to say, as well as talking about that pre-event email, you really want to target the audience with that, because the information that might be needed from an exhibitor to a speaker to a delegate is going to be completely different. So you don't want to overwhelm people with information that's not relevant to them. We often find that targeting those pre-event emails with a concise, specific information for them works really well. And again, that's a 1% improvement within that.
And we've talked about that, the last few weeks of my learning is, being able to set up all of those different buyer registration groups. So as you said, your exhibitors, your members, your non-members, and as you say, target those in the correct way. So, you might send a different tone of voice to one particular branch of audience than you would the other. What about that knowledge gap for attendees, Anna?
Yes, so you really want to make sure that they've got the information in advance. I think it kind of comes in, and we'll probably talk about the, building the excitement for the event. And actually, the one thing you don't want is you don't want attendees to arrive with anxiety. And I think by providing as much information in advance, obviously you've got to keep it clear, you've got to keep it concise, you've got to not overwhelm them. But making sure they have all of that information in advance makes that they can arrive without feeling anxious. They're ready for that event. They're ready excited.
They know how to collect their badges as well. That's the great thing with the QR codes. Yes. It's always thinking, well, I haven't got to look through an email. I've got a QR code. Just go straight up
and in the Apple Wallet.
Absolutely. And then leading on to that excitement, how do you keep that excitement going?
There's a lot of stuff that you can do about excitement. It's people attend events for 2 reasons. First is education, and second is networking. While we spend a lot of time on, coming up with content, and I truly believe content is the king. That's probably debate for another day. But networking and engagement plays a huge part, because that's what people are there. Otherwise, they would, virtual events would be a success, and everyone would be, grasping content online. So spending time on engagement, and I think in terms of 1% improvement, what you can do is let them have some sort of connection with buyers, sponsors, all sorts of attendees. Communicating the right things at the right time. Sending push notifications, and I think we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Letting them engage with things like social wall, etc. Like putting that picture. There's nothing more people like than getting a like on their pictures these days, and letting them have that experience on site. I think that's if you go that extra mile of having all these things in place. So, for example, if you have gamification, let's say a lot of event organizers do gamification these days, but if you go that extra mile and set up some sort of, let's say, a redemption desk at your event, where attendees could walk in, scan their QR codes and redeem those points, that just helps you go that extra mile. And when attendees see that redemption desk, they automatically feel like, oh, you know what, I need to be a part of this. And trust me, people get extremely competitive when it comes to gamification. Like I have seen, there's something interesting. One of the most competitive groups of people I've seen on gamification were stockbrokers. I was at an event of stockbrokers, and the second most competitive were event planners. It's I
can imagine.
Yeah, people get extremely competitive. So if you ever thought about, oh, we don't want gamification, or my attendees are probably not going to like it, think again. Like gamification can get extremely competitive and engaging.
And I guess, leading on from that is that FOMO as well. You can use gamification, to get people to say, we're now up to X number of attendees. And it's not a sales ploy to say, register now, but you can actually see people engaging. You can see people going up the leaderboard. So it's a case of, I don't want to miss out. I need to get in on the action straight away.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And on that point, I also wanted to mention that I think earlier we were discussing about change. Change is not easy. Don't get me wrong. That, it's it feels very overwhelming. You feel a bit scared when you're trying to introduce a new thing. But look at history. Like we've evolved in the past, decade or so, more than a couple of decades. The entire format of events hasn't been changed. We still have buyers, suppliers, we still have conferences, we've got speakers, attendees. It's all about content and networking. But the tools and technologies we use today have evolved. Again, talking about faxing invites, and using, paper abstract books, etc., to now when you're using AI, etc. So change is not easy, but when you understand something, instead of being scared of a new technology, it gives you benefits. So when I talk about gamification, etc., it's try to think of it as a friend for your engagement. Like you will see a lot of good results, and you'll only find it if you try. So.
Anna, how about you? We're talking about gamification, but I know community comes off that aspect as well.
Absolutely. So I think, a lot of the events that we organise, especially association events, it's the one time of the year that you're going to get together with colleagues or people in the industry. It's the one time you get to catch up and meet with them, and it's that community feel. And I always think that building that excitement in the advances, knowing if they're going, being able to arrange meeting up with them. The attendee app is actually great for that with the meeting hub, because you can have a look, you can see who's attending, you can send them a message, you can arrange a coffee, you can do all of that in advance. So when you actually turn up, you go, great, yes, I've got a friend here.
We were saying earlier, it's almost like that first day at school. It doesn't matter how old you get, it's always nice to see that friendly face, whether that be one of the organising team, a speaker or a colleague or somebody you've worked with for 20 years, but you've now moved on to different organisations. So yeah, I think that is a really important part. And the flip side of that, what are the big no-nos? We've talked about what we should be doing. What really annoys delegates?
I suppose what I find with delegates is it's that information in advance. It's, is it too little, too late sometimes? Working with organisers, it's sometimes, you want to make sure you've got that information out in good time. Again, it gives them the preparation, it gives them that. Overloading the information. Pavi mentioned earlier about, sending 4 or 5 emails out about different things. They're trawling through their inbox. They're trying to find the information, keeping that even together. And actually, can you use another media form to actually display that? So often that we do, especially for the apps, is we'll do explainer videos. So rather than, a 7-page document of all the instructions of how to use it, actually a 3-4 minute video can work really well. It's engaging. They can see it. It's visual. And I find that works really well as well.
And even on the commuting, I suppose if you're going to work and you're on the train or you're just waiting for something, it's a lot easier to watch something than to trawl through the notes there. Pavi, how about you? What sort of the big no-nos on your side?
For me, the biggest no-no is going to be having multiple apps for the same event. I have, trust me, some of you will be very surprised, but that I have seen events where you've got a different application for attendees, another one for exhibitors, which they use for, let's say, meetings matching, and maybe another. There was this one event where I saw 3 different mobile applications, attendees, exhibitors, and there was another one which was dedicated for, I think, on-site check-ins, etc., because they were using multiple providers. So I think it's a strict no. Like if you imagine, you anyways have hundreds of apps. Like I encourage you to, after the webinar, check out your phone. I bet you're going to have more than 100 applications on your phone. So during this day and age, like the last thing you want is another mobile application. And getting your attendees to download a mobile application is another, needs to have another separate strategy. So I think one of the biggest no-nos would be having 2 or 3 different applications. Just stick to one and get it right. I think that'd work well.
And even in my sort of 6 weeks at Mice Concierge, that's something I've really picked up on in clients. That's one of the biggest challenges. And it's great that between us all, we can offer that solution focus, because, you'll have somebody saying, well, I'm using this system for my CRM. I'm using this website because it's a business case decision that was made by the board. But then I need to use these different payment methods. So, being able to use one portal, you can still use all those other systems, but API is a new word that I've learned recently. So, never too old to learn, but, having that functionality. So, don't think that if you have to use multiple apps or multiple platforms, that you're stuck with those. There are ways that you can interface those with one portal, one platform as well. So that's something I've learned, and that was a big takeaway. So talking about, as we've said, push notifications and emails, how about during the event? Do we overuse push notifications or emails? What should we be doing?
That's a very interesting question, actually. People would debate that, emails are better because you're used to checking your emails than compared to a new event mobile application which you've downloaded. And some people would prefer push notifications. My personal experience is that during the event, push notifications work really well. I'll give you an example. I was attending Arabian Travel Mart in Dubai. This was, I think, about 7 or 8 years ago. And I was registered for a session. I had the event app on my phone. I was walking towards the session room. I got a push notification saying that, by the way, the air conditioning wasn't working in that room. We've switched the room to another one. And I immediately saw a bunch of attendees just change their direction and started moving towards the other room. It was a beautiful sight. And this was 8 years ago. Your mobile applications weren't that common, at that time. And but imagine the event organizer sending an email to all the registered attendees for that. Like it would have taken time. Push notifications resonate well and much better than emails when it comes to attendees on site, because if you're a busy individual, you get loads of emails. Chances are your email is going to get stuck somewhere in their inbox. They're not going to get that message. But if you send a push notification and they see a notification coming from the event app, they know it's relevant and they need to access it right there. So I think push notifications work way better compared to emails when it comes to during the event experience.
And we're on that point with emails.
I was going to say, I agree. I know what it's like. Whenever you're on site at an event, you're leaving, your normal day job behind. Especially in some industries, your inbox is going to be filling up with emails. You don't want to have a look at it. Last thing you need is an event organizer filling your inbox up with more emails and then having to look at them. And again, I agree with Pavi. It's about having that immediate response to something. If you have to be careful in where you say and send information out. If it's something that's immediate, it's something they need to know at that point, definitely send an alert. But also don't be sending too many out, because you don't also want to bombard them.
And on that note, Pavi and I were at an event recently, and there was really good use of push notifications. I have to say they were using events there for that particular event. So, but it was really good use of push notifications, but thought had been put into it. When was a notification required? And what I loved about it, the theme was superheroes. So instead of having a push notification to say your session is about to start, it was a movie theme, superhero theme tune, and up really loud. So as soon as that came on, we did need a push notification straight away. Was session's about to start. So again, there are other ways that you can think about issuing these important pieces of information across. Totally agree with Pavi's idea in if you're changing a room, that needs to. It's no good putting it on even the Tannoy system. Your push notifications will work in that respect as well. We've gone through the pre, we've gone through the during. Those of you watching at home, please do submit questions. I've seen a few come in, but they are things that we are about to cover. So hopefully we won't keep you in suspense for too much longer. But we've talked, as I said, about pre and during. How about post-event? How can these applications help in terms of post-events?
So I'd say one of the key things at post-event is your feedback. So surveys are really, really key for organisers. We all know that if someone has something negative to say, they're going to be the first person to fill out that feedback form. It's always the way. But actually, it's important for you as an organisation. We talk about 1%. Actually, this feedback that comes in post-event is going to help you for the 1% for the next year. So it's really important to be able to capture that information. So obviously within the system, you can send out surveys, but how would you get people to do them? That's the key thing. Often we find incentives. Incentives is the best way to do these. You're kind of holding something a little bit hostage there. So often organizations, will hold back CPD certificates, they'll hold back the slides, they'll hold back recordings on the basis that, you have to have completed that survey until you get information. And we've found with organizations by putting an incentive in place that it's dramatically increased the percentage of responses they've had.
And, we again talked on this point. It doesn't have to be expensive. So when we talk about incentivizing, you'll be giving them the slides anyway. You'll be giving them the CPD points anyway. Use your exhibitors and your sponsors. So, if you can have a really nice prize, so it could be a piece of technology, it could be attendance at a different conference, an international conference, but just having those incentives, I think, will really push people forward, and it's not going to affect your bottom line in terms of your revenue. And then going back as well, going sort of a full life cycle, using that feedback to see, what comes forward. As an attendee, I love nothing more than going to an event and thinking they've really taken on board what was discussed last year. So, it's a great way of making that 1% improvement. Have you anything to add in terms of the post-event?
Yeah, I was thinking there's been a lot of debate in the industry about how do you take that live event experience and use it for future events? Like live events are great. The kind of experience we create at events is amazing. But how do you use that excitement for future events or future growth or future connections? And there's been a lot of chat about, creating a community of events, which, you can basically, after you attend the event, you join a community and you keep using that excitement, those connections throughout the year. I've seen some events, trying to create their own communities, and I still think it's a nascent stage. In terms of, post-event experience, I think you were absolutely right in terms of using that excitement and incentivizing them to, take that survey. Or, I've seen at a trade show, companies would try and book exhibitors for next year right there, give them some sort of incentive to sign up for next year, because they know that things are exciting right now. They've just had a great experience, so they capitalize on that. I think there's a couple of things which we can look, again, incentivizing and using that on-site experience and giving them some sort of connection with that event, that it's you can join a community, or by the way, stay connected with these buyers and suppliers throughout the year using our mobile application, or you can access recordings and your let's say your meetings or content about this event even after the event is over. Again, coming back to incentive, there's a variety of incentives you could do. Discounting is one part, but you can also, let's say, holding back the CE certificates and CPD points, etc. So there's a lot of improvement which can be done there, but there is a larger debate going around community. Let's see how that shapes out. I think it's doable. There was a lot of interesting thoughts which popped out during COVID, because people were trying to create virtual communities. We saw some communities, etc., as well. But having that idea of taking that entire event experience and then putting them together in one single community, which is industry specific, and imagine it as a group of events, where you can capitalize on that experience throughout the year. It's not only beneficial for suppliers, but buyers and the event organizers as well. So keeping them engaged throughout the event, even after the event is always, I think it's going to be key. So think about communities. It's still in nascent stages, but I think community is something which could really improve the impact of your event.
And I suppose I'm guilty of doing this. I think you download an app. How often do you actually delete that app? So they tend to be there, all the time. So I think it's extended that life cycle. So if you've got a hold of the audience, you can keep them engaged then throughout. So yeah, I think that's a really good concept as well. Before we move on, any other thoughts? No? So moving on now. So we're coming to the end of the session, looking at key takeaways. So I'm going to ask the panel, Anna and Pavi, what are the 3 main 1% improvements that you would highly recommend people leave with and they can implement?
So I think the first one would be kind of a timeline. It's really important for your event in the planning stages to make sure that you have set timelines to achieve your goals. We know that, as I said, being an event planner is one of the most stressful jobs in the world, but actually working back from your event start date and putting those timelines in place, whether it be internally with your external providers, suppliers, having those core deadlines and getting stakeholders involved and taking feedback. I think that's a really key one that can help plan. Another one, again, comes into that is plan ahead. There's always that shoulda, woulda, coulda, wish I'd done that before the event. Have a think about, before you're starting the planning of the event, what are your goals, what you want to achieve. We've worked with organizations who've launched registration sites and then 3 months down the line, and I wish we'd asked that question. I wish we thought about that. But actually having that time at the beginning to think and really think about the goals, again, helps you achieve everything. And I think the last thing to say is about, don't be afraid of outsourcing. So obviously we're a gold partner with EventSale. We work with them. A lot of their clients will come to them and say, we want the technology, we want all of this, but actually we don't have the resources internally to be able to actually deliver that. And organizers can sometimes be afraid of losing control. You don't have to lose control. You can still work with, outsourcers, suppliers to help you facilitate that, but actually keep that control. EventSale is fantastic in the fact it has, live reporting, organizer portals, you can have access. It really kind of helps, you as an organization can be focused on the key things to use, but use the experts for something else that you may not know how to do.
And I guess on that note, is something I picked up even working at a venue is, as you said, planning an event is hard. You need to really focus on the content, the speakers, the theming. You don't want to be worrying about your registration, your updates, cross-referencing 6 spreadsheets and multiples. So I think, and I've seen that with my concierge, it is very much an extension of the team. So it's having that extra resource so you don't lose control. But it does free you up then. One thing that was huge when I was working at a venue was social impact and working with Visit Britain on their event framework. And I think having somebody like my concierge and an agent coming on board, it allows you to take that time out to think about other things. So social impact, what can you do to that community, that destination? What benefits can you do? So again, a 1% improvement might be outsourcing your event. And this certainly isn't a sales pitch, but it allows you then to take that step back and focus on other things that you can't outsource, but things that will really make a difference. And it could be these things that are being talked about at board level, what can we do if it's a particular medical conference with the medical association? What difference can that make to the community? Is there a particular health issue that's going on in that community? And by bringing all of these wonderful professionals to that destination, that could really make a difference. So as Anna said, I think it's not looking at it losing control. It's about enabling you to have control on other elements whilst handing that over as well. Pavi, over to you, your 3 improvements.
For me, number 1 would be having a connected and seamless experience. I'll tell you something. I recently signed up for a new Wi-Fi service. The day I signed up, I got 4 different emails. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company. I got 4 different emails, one to log into my online account, another one with my contract, another one explaining all the, the billing details, etc., another marketing email as soon as I signed up. Imagine. You don't want to do that with your attendees. So I can't stress how important it is to have everything combined in one single email, having that connected experience for your attendees. The second would be, having marginal gains on site engagement. Again, people attend events for 2 reasons: either getting education or learning something new, or networking. They want to engage with people. We talk a lot about content. We don't talk enough about engagement. There's a lot of improvements which can be made, be it add that extra question in your gamification, set up a redemption desk, etc. And the third, which we hardly talk about, is getting that connection with the other systems which you use. I'm going to ask the audience, imagine how many systems you use at your organization. I bet there's a CRM system, event technology system, marketing system, accounting system. That's 4 out there. And if you're an association, you probably have a membership management system as well. That's 5 different systems. If those systems don't talk to each other, you're never going to have the full picture. It is very important for the system to talk to each other. And this, I'm trying to lean towards something really, really important and impactful. I did a paper a couple of years ago on the impact of events on the economy. Events don't just impact, and Gemma, you and I were having a conversation about this earlier, that how events don't just impact attendees and the organizer, they impact the entire location, the city, and the economy. You would only be able to prove that impact when you have enough data. So data like how many attendees traveled, which all hotels did they book, how much money did they probably spend in that city. Imagine if you have that kind of data, you can eventually support the government and the local authorities with that what kind of arrangements do we need to make, because we've got an influx of thousands of attendees for these shows during this time. So it will all start when you connect these systems. Have a system which is open for integrations, have an open API. And if you don't know what an API is, it's nothing complex. You can reach out to us, we'll tell you what an API is. But having connections between multiple systems is extremely important. We do it using smart connectors, and if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Talk to us. We'll explain.
There might be another webinar coming up about smart connectors. I hear it on the grapevine, so who knows? Watch this space. So that leads me on now, coming to the final part of the session. So the future. And we've just dipped in there a little bit about the APIs, but what gaps are there and what improvements do we see for the future? What is there for 2026 and beyond?
Well, in today's day and age, future would be incomplete without talking about AI. Everyone's using AI. So I think leaning on to AI would be one key thing in the future. A lot of event planners, our clients, are already using AI. It's in different bits and pieces. Some use ChatGPT. There's multiple other tools, and some use AI tools to generate content. I think it's going to get formalized, and you'll see event-specific AI-based tools in the events industry very soon. You would also see standardization of using event technology at companies. When I started selling event technology about 15 years ago, back in the day, event technology systems weren't that common. But we always heard about marketing tech systems like HubSpot, Marketo, Eloqua. So they were standard. Like, you can't imagine a company without a marketing tech system in these days. But now we're seeing that trend that, if you do events, you have to have an event technology system. You can't rely on, things like Google Forms or Jot Forms. And I've also seen a lot of candidates, before they join a company as an event planner, they ask, what system do you use? Oh, by the way, I'm certified on this particular system. So we're going to see this getting more standardized in the near future as well. So I think these two would be my key takeaways on how the future is going to look like.
Anne, over to you.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very sort of technology led. It's all, Pavi was saying about APIs and things like that. It's all about having that integration between systems. Like, it's a big thing we know in the industry, GDPR, sharing lists of data between various different things. It's a big no-no. And actually, you touched on it with the API, but we know, especially with associations, they have their custom-built CRM systems, their membership database. They're never going to be able to come away from that. But actually, by having that integration into a technology platform, avoids the issues with GDPR, avoids the issues of having multiple lists. We know it's the worst thing as an organizer when you've got one list somewhere, one list somewhere else, and no one knows which one's the right one's correct. By having that integration between the systems, I think there's going to be a lot more lead into that. We found a lot more of the clients we're working with, and we know mentioned APIs here, but a lot more of the clients we're working with are now going down that route to have that single source of truth within it.
I think it's, as we say, it's always working with challenges and solutions, and definitely, I've even picked up on that quickly. The APIs, if you are using multiple systems, you don't have to. There are solutions, and I get it's a minefield out there. You can Google API and all sorts will come up, but ask the experts. We've got our contact details on there, so we'd love nothing more to take this offline and to have a conversation with you about what can be done, just to give you that information to take forward. On the note of AI, what should we avoid? I know, Pavi, we had a discussion about this last week in terms of what should we avoid when it comes to using AI.
I'll pass over. I know it's avoiding using it too much, but I'll let Pavi say it.
I'd say use AI. Like, you cannot escape AI these days. So, be friends with AI. However, one thing I would say is don't rely too much on AI. I have seen cases where, you would go to ChatGPT, type something, get results, and instantly just pick it up, copy and paste it in order to save time. And they backfire. because in this case was related to a legal team. We basically someone went on ChatGPT and said, give me an opt-out clause. ChatGPT gave an opt-out clause, copy and paste it in the contract. And the other side, there was a legal person sitting, a real person reviewing all of that, and they sent like 50 questions. So don't rely too much. You do have to verify. AI hasn't reached that stage where you can just blindly, have faith in it. Especially when you're asking AI for help with larger files. For example, when we attended that last event, there were a lot of venue sales professionals who said that they use AI to fill in their RFPs. Now, RFPs are generally big, like you're talking hundreds of questions on there. And if you blindly rely on AI to fill in those files for you and you just send it across without reviewing it, it could backfire. Trust me, I've seen cases. So I'd say relying too much on AI at this stage is not recommended.
Yeah, I think it can definitely save time, but it can also cause some problems as well. So, it might not be doing it yourself might, take a lot longer. So you are saving time with AI, but certainly having that time put aside to do your reviews and your checks. I love using AI, but you can't take the people away. And it's, what we've talked about. It's, you need technology, but you still need the people behind it as well. And I think it's having that human factor to it as well, which is a great help.
Absolutely. I just want to add something on that. I recently made a LinkedIn post about how I crave to see something written by a human these days. Like, how many of us, and I'm going to ask the audience again, you look at a LinkedIn post and oh, that's written by ChatGPT. Oh, that's written by something else. Like you see signs. I know there's some people out there who think, yeah, you can train AI to post real stuff, etc. But eventually you make out that this is not a real person. Like, I crave to see that one grammatical mistake, that one error, because that's when I would know that this was actually, typed by a human. Mark Cuban also mentioned, famous Mark Cuban from Shark Tank, that, we're using so much AI and virtual applications these days that eventually in the near future, people are going to start craving more for that human connection. We live in ages of avatars, and how many of you remember Ghibli? And that's another example of how AI is evolving so fast. There was this new thing where you could generate your own avatar, and now it's nowhere to be seen. So it's evolving at a very, very fast pace. People will crave for live interactions and real human connections. So while using AI is great, we're relying too much. I think it's a debate to see, what kind of impact it is going to have in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. I think, we've been keeping an eye on the questions, and we seem to have answered most of them within the script, which means we've done a good job, hopefully. So if you do have any questions, as we've said, our contact details are online, so please do reach out. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's taken the time. As I mentioned, we know we're in the events industry. We know just how busy it is. So we really appreciate you signing up and joining us on this webinar, hopefully the first of many that we'll be doing. And I just want to say a huge thank you to our panelists who are usually behind the scenes. So Pavi from Events there, thank you. And Anna from Mice Concierge, again, thank you. And also a special thank you to Alex, who's behind the camera where we usually are, who it's not relying on AI. It's an actual person who's been looking after us and making sure that everything runs smoothly. So in terms of this webinar, so it's been recorded. It will be coming out to you. So further information on that will follow. But all I have to say for now is thank you and goodbye.